This is your sign to do it now. Whatever it may be, whether big or small, if you've been putting something off for ages like I have, then now is the time. You can do it and I believe in you. Was that a little bit over the top? Yeah, maybe so. However, I really put the pro in procrastination. It's a very annoying trait and it's my least favourite characteristic about myself. Hopefully with time I can change this, but its latest embodiment has been my crazy, heavily overgrown jungle tank where the Valacin area has completely taken over. It's been desperately crying out for a well-needed trim and maintenance session, but despite being fully aware of this, I've coasted along doing the bare minimum feedings and water changes. The nagging thought has been tucked away in the back of my mind, growing for weeks and months, but eventually the idea reached a critical mass within my mind and suddenly I gained a boost of motivation required to get the job done. And I'm so glad I started, as what I assumed would be a mundane trim and clean quickly evolved into a full rescape, completely transforming the old overgrown tank into something new, beautiful and full of life. This aquascape really exceeded my expectations and I truly think it's one of my best yet. So I'm really excited to share it with you all and I'd love to hear what you think. But the old tank's cleared out now, so let the rescape begin. All that remains from the old setup is the substrate. It's a mix of aquasoil, sand and a whole lot of mulm. Hopefully there's still enough nutrients in there for the plants, but if we do run into issues later on, I can always add in some root tabs in the future. I banked it up a bit at the back before capping the lot with play sand. This should hopefully lock in the aquasoil and dirt, and now it's time for the hardscape. Personally, I find constructing hardscape the most challenging part of aquascaping and setting up aquariums. It's extremely important, and I see it just like the skeleton within our bodies. It provides crucial shape, structure and a framework for the rest of the aquascape to be built around, and without our bones, we'd be a little bit flat. Obviously there are exceptions like Dutch style tanks, but to me, the composition of rocks and wood can either make it or break it, and be the difference between a jaw-dropping scene that inspires wonder and awe, and a jumbled up mess that amounts to less than the sum of its parts. Therefore, it should come as no surprise that I often stress myself out during the process. It's a hard enough challenge just picking the right materials, given the immensely diverse options widely available now. But if that wasn't hard enough, it's only the first hurdle. As once you've got your materials, there can be a near infinite number of ways to arrange our silly little twigs, branches, rocks and pebbles, and just a slight alteration in its orientation or angle can completely transform the look of an aquascape and the emotions it invokes within us. It's a beautiful and unique thing, as preferences are completely personal and ever-changing. At times it can be effortless and something beautiful falls into place with ease, whereas other times it's an exhaustive battle with indecisiveness and all possible permutations need to be thoroughly explored before making that final decision. In this instance it was the latter, and after some time I ended up with a triangular island composition. It's made up of two pieces of old spiderwood, the larger piece being from the old scape and the smaller coming from elsewhere. This one had been out of water for a while, meaning that it would likely float, so I placed a rock on there to weigh it down. The rocks are a range of rounded pebbles with a wide variety of colours and tones. I placed the larger pebbles in and around the base of the wood and made them gradually get smaller as I moved outwards. These rocks don't have a particular name as they're just pebbles that I collected from a beach, but I've seen very similar rounded pebbles in plenty of fish shops. Wow, we're off to a great start. This could be my own little section of a riverbank somewhere. I then filled up the tank. Half was fresh dechlorinated tap water and the other half was water from my other setups. I'm unsure on whether this really impacts the new setup, but I was doing water changes anyway. I then sprinkled a little bit of gravel for some added detail. It probably would have looked better if it was a rounder shape and a more closer colour to the big pebbles, but this was all that I had on hand. I'll be using the same two sponge filters that were used in the old setup as they're already cycled, but only one of them is going in the tank for now, as the other is currently being used in a bucket, which is temporarily housing the old inhabitants while we redecorate their home. I saved a ton of the old plants, most of which is the Valacin area. I would like to incorporate this into the new scape, but in a much more controlled manner. I'm going to do a very thin layer at the back, almost like a curtain, and and it's absolutely vital that I keep up with the maintenance and trim out any runners that it sends out, because as you've seen, this thing grows like a weed. Honestly, I could probably leave this as it is and be quite satisfied, but I really love plants, and for me, the more the merrier. At this point, I presumed the wood would be waterlogged as it had been in the tank for over 24 hours, so I removed the anchoring rock. Whilst adding in the heater and tucking it behind the hardscape, a small nudge revealed that it was still buoyant. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I really need to start gluing things down. With the anchoring rock back on the wood, I did a small water change to try clear up the water as it was a little bit misty. As well as the mountain of Val, I also saved a few crypts and little pieces of Anubias, but for what I had in mind, this was nowhere near enough, so I headed out for some more plants. I picked these up today, so we'll get these opened. And then these here are what I got from the shop. So we've got this Cryptocrine Aquarium, which is like a nice little one. Another crypt, which is Cryptocrine undulatus green. I think that's similar to some of the ones I've already got. This cool one, which is crimped, and it can grow really, really big. I like that one, that's really cool. And then just another random crypt. Got this huge, big Anubias, which is really big. Find somewhere nice to cram that in. I was hoping for more Anubias and stuff, but I went to 2 different shops and they just didn't really have any. Got Lumnifilla, which I might put some in. I might put that in a different tank actually. And then rasbora. Those two probably go in the background. These in the mid and foreground, and then that will get crammed in somewhere in there, maybe where that rock is. Prepping the plants is simple. Pull the plant out the basket and hold on to it and the weight, then tear away as much of the rock wool as possible, keeping the roots intact, and finally swill it around in some water to remove any small bits left. Planting is probably my favourite part of the process, besides adding the fish of course. It's so calming, relaxing, and at this point it really brings the tank to life. I find that it requires much less thought than the hardscape does, and I can just chill out, go with the flow and trust my instincts. The aquascape's really coming to life now, so in go the first inhabitants, a bunch of ramshorn snails. I'll also add in the second sponge filter, which should help with the water clarity. The tank looks absolutely fantastic, but it's not finished yet, as I have ordered a few more things to elevate it to the next level. But it's time to add in the old fish, as they've been in that bucket for far too long. Here is everything that was in the old tank. And as you can see, there's a huge population of shrimp in a wide range of colours and sizes. The fish are off in first, and I have 8 Pygmy Corydoras and 7 chilli rasboras. Their numbers have dwindled a bit in the years that I've had them, but the light stocking means we can add more fish in the future, once everything's settled in. Oh, and of course, the mini showstoppers, my 2 Scarlet badis. I wasn't quite feeling the pick and mix shrimp, and I thought that the classic red cherries would really stand out against the bright green plants. So I picked out all the reds in the original group, and then stole a few from this tub and the red shrimp showdown tank. There's around 20 going in the new setup, and all the old shrimp were dispersed among my many other tanks. Right, so I've got some good news and sadly some bad news. We'll get the bad out of the way first, but I'm absolutely gutted as unfortunately one of my precious Scarlet badis has passed away. It somehow jumped out of the tank and I found it on the floor all dried up on the second morning. It's completely my fault for filling the tank up too high. The poor thing was in new surroundings and it must have gotten spooked and somehow darted upwards, and because there were no floating plants to stop it or indicate where the surface was, it just shot out and ended up on the floor. An absolutely horrible way to go. The good news is that everyone else has settled in really nicely and some new things have arrived for the tank. I love floating plants and have them in almost all of my aquariums. I wanted to switch it up this time and try out some new species. I've got some lovely healthy water lettuce and this other one as well. They look great and they're much bigger than the usual floating plants I use. The chilli rasbora seem to love hanging out beneath them, and I've seen them nibbling at the long roots. They're probably hunting little critters using the plants as refuge. I also got some awesome anubias, but I'm currently waiting for the wood to be fully waterlogged and secure before I add them, as these are epiphyte plants, so I'll be cramming them between the wooden rocks. Just look at how vibrant the male chilli rasboras are on a morning. There's such a stark difference in the coloration. I've been running the light for 5 hours a day and I'm keeping the timing quite low as I really don't want to get any algae. I may ramp this up later once things have settled in. The tank has been up and running for 11 days now and it's going swimmingly. There's a slight bit of algae on the glass, but no sign of my arch nemesis hair algae. So I gave the glass a scrub and did a water change. Somehow that annoying piece of wood won't sink, so I guess the anchoring rock needs to stay. I swapped it out for a much thinner pebble and placed another one on the other end to hold the wood in place. So with the wood somewhat secure, it's time for the icing on the cake, some beautiful anubias. Wow. Honestly, I am incredibly proud of this aquascape, and it's by far one of the best I have ever done. Probably the best, I would say. Maybe joint 2, but oh my god, like, I absolutely love this aquarium. It looks so amazing, and it looks like a proper aquascaper did it, or like one of the top YouTube channels or something. I don't know. I think it's like a step above most of the other aquascapes that I've done before, and yeah, I'm incredibly proud, and I'm really happy with how this turned out. It's completely blown my expectations. I'm smitten. I'm really happy. I can't stop smiling because it just looks, I think it looks absolutely fantastic. The stocking's really low. We've only got the tiny chilli rasboras and Pygmy Corydoras and the Scarlet badis and the shrimp, and it's quite a big tank. We've definitely got room for some more fish and inhabitants, so I'd love to hear your suggestions. What fish do you think would work well with the fish that are in there already, and what ones would complement the aquascape and make the tank look even better? I'd love to hear what you think. Do you like the tank? I really hope you do. Are there any areas or room for improvements? What might you have done differently? What do you think worked well? Did I go overboard on the plants? Because I know it's quite heavy, and I did kind of like it before I put the Anubias in, but with that Anubias in, it's all sort of filled it out. You can't see as much of the wood, but I still think it's in my opinion, it's a masterpiece. It's my favourite tank I've ever set up, and I'm honestly really happy and proud with how it turned out. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for coming along on this journey with me and being along for the ride of building this magnificent tank. I'm glad I could share it with you all. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you later, fish friends.